Hey y'all, how you doing? I'm just kind of getting set up here. Waiting for the notifications to go out to all y'all. So while all of that's happening, and the chat is open, so go ahead and say hi in the chat and let me know where you're from. If you're not a regular, if you have just found my YouTube channel. So I have wanted to do my DNA for a long time. I think the more that I get involved with unity consciousness, not just human rights, that we are all one and we all deserve the same rights because we're humans. Hey, Robbie, how are you? But really, it's about unity consciousness. And so, what people are finding when they get their DNA done, like you used to get your breasts done, or used to get your face done, or your lids done. Now people are getting their DNA done. I think that's hilarious. Excuse my hair. It's one of those years. Anyway, but what people are finding is that people have different genetics than they ever imagined. That it's not in their family stories because prior to the past really like the past 120 years, but definitely the past 150, 160 years, most people were illiterate. And so, and that was on purpose to keep people uneducated. And that was most people, to keep most people uneducated. Education really was for the elite. And so, stories were passed down through oral tradition. And of course, back in the day, it really was about you could make up your life, because there was no way to prove it other than the way you looked. And the way you looked, people judged you by that. And unfortunately, people still do that today. But what I think people are realizing when they get their DNA done is that there's a lot more involved to who they are, what they look, and the stories and the adventures, the travels, and the sorrows that their family lines have experienced over the past 1,000, 2,000, 6,000, 10,000, 12,000 years. So let's talk a little bit about what I did. So I wanted to know more about my DNA, because the way the family story goes, my last name is Causey, Causey, which for some reason is one of the most difficult names for people to spell and pronounce. I don't know why. Causey it's the word cause with a Y, right? And people, since I'm an activist, people have always kind of, taken that, oh, you're a rebel because I'm from Mississippi. Think, oh, you're a rebel with a cause. I'm like, yeah, never heard that before. So the family story goes that our Irish ancestor, William Causey, came to the Mississippi Territory in the 1780s. He was a captain in the American Revolution. It was the 2nd Carolina Militia. So he came from Ireland. His brother and his father I think was Patrick and his brother was Thomas, or maybe that's the other way around. But they came actually on, I think it was the second ship behind the Mayflower. So the family had actually come over to the colonies before he actually came over to stay and fight the English. The English monarchy, please allow me to let you know, while I do not like the English monarchy and all that it has done and what it represents, I have nothing but love for the English people. All right, as long as you got no problem with the Irish people, and that's a whole 800 years of contented history. We'll leave that there. So William Causey came from County Galway. Came to Maryland, and during the Revolutionary War fought in the 2nd Carolina Militia. Because the country, the newly formed United States, was was in debt, as the national bank balance was in trouble, as it is today. So not much has changed. Instead of being paid in money, this was still a time where land was the wealth. So instead of being paid in money, he was paid with 640 acres of land in the Mississippi Territory, what is now Amite County here in the state of Mississippi. And with that, I don't know if he founded the town of Liberty, Mississippi, but that is where he created his homestead, and that's where the family, to this day, we still have family reunions in or around Liberty, Mississippi. So that's the story on my father's side. And so my family's been here in Mississippi since the 1780s, long before it was a state. Now, of course, let's be perfectly honest that this land didn't just happen to come up for sale. This land was actually taken or bartered, probably not very nicely, with the indigenous tribes here. And the indigenous tribes here in Mississippi are mostly the Choctaw and the Chickasaw, and then there are lots of smaller tribes or related tribes to the Choctaw and the Chickasaw. Like down here on the coast, we have the Biloxis, the Pascagoula. I think the Homas were here too, because there's Houma, Louisiana, but they were also over here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, or what we call now Mississippi. Of course, the word Mississippi is an Indian word. Most of the, at least half of the counties, place names, a lot of the words, the rivers are all Indian words. So I feel Mississippi is really actually connected to its Indian history. So anyway, okay. So my mother's family is their last name. Her last name was Abernathy. So no, I do not list Abernathy on on places where it says "and your mother's maiden name." Oh well, I'm not putting Abernathy because I talk about my my mother's side of the family. So they're all Abernathys, but her mother, and Abernathy is Scottish. So if you ever hear like Aberdeen, Abernathy, the word Abernathy itself, I think, means mouth of the river. And so it relates to the family living near the mouth of the river Abernathy. And so getting back to Causey, Causey is considered a polygenic name. That means that it either describes what the family did, building causeways, or where the family lived, living near a major causeway. And in fact, there is a part of Ireland called the Giant's Causeway, and it's really incredible. If you ever just want to look up pictures of this, the formations of these, I think they're hexagonal if I remember correctly, but these geological formations that come up out of the ocean, and they come up in these columns, these hexagonal columns. It's really cool. But then, the earth is amazing. So anyway, so my father's family is definitely Irish. My mother's family is definitely Scottish. My mother's mother was a Keller from Monroe, Louisiana. And so there's a little bit of German. And then in the family stories, so the Irish and the Scottish, in the family stories, we have they just relate, and there's this. My grandmother was really good at this. My father's mother was really good at the genealogy, at least on that side of the family. Her maiden name was Ward, which is actually an anglicized version of Baird or Vaird, depending on if you pronounce the B as the BH as a V, which you would in Scots Gaelic, I think. You would in Irish Gaelic, so whether it's Ward as is an English name or Ward as an anglicized Scottish name. And again, to relate the history of how the English crown has invaded Scotland and Ireland for 800 years, that's way more than I have time to go into right now. But I do sing about it when I sing Irish songs at Irish pub gigs. But which is really interesting that recently I was told that my YouTube performance of The Fields of Athenry was played at the Liverpool game, like the championships or one of the finals of the major rugby game over in I was in Manchester. I'm like, really? Wow. So the fields of Athenry tell a little bit of that. Okay, so that's a little bit about my personal family. So my father's side is Irish, possibly English, Scottish. My paternal grandmother's side, my mother's family is definitely Scottish with some German, but definitely Southern. We're all Southern. So that's what I'm really interested to see is like what's going to creep into the DNA just by being in the South, because the South is a melting pot. The American South has been a melting pot for all the people who were not wanted up in New England, let's say. Whether it was because you were Irish, they didn't want you. Scottish, they didn't want you. They were Black, they didn't want you up in New England, believe it or not. American Indian, they didn't want you. If you were Catholic, they didn't want you. If you weren't Christian, they didn't want you. So it's really interesting how the South is actually a big melting pot of cultures, and the trifecta being Irish, Scottish, American Indian, and African, right? So, okay. So then a little bit about the history of how all of this happens. So so I'm just prepping this, and I think more people are jumping on. I see a few more people on. Is that the history of the little island known as Britain, that's been a source of invasions by other cultures for well over 2,000 years. So the Irish, new research has shown that the Irish have been in Ireland for at least 5,000 years. And so that completely changes some of the Irish people's own oral traditions and own stories. That the archaeological and DNA evidence shows that there are people in Ireland today whose families have lived in Ireland for over 5,000 years. So with England, which was Britannia or Briton, Briton, before it was England, I'll explain that in a second. So Briton, and then you have the Picts, or what we now call the Scottish. The word Scot is the band of Scotties. They were actually Irish. They left Ireland in the 5th century. So then you also have Ireland. Then you have little Wales, the Brythonic Cymru down there. And so you have Briton, the original indigenous people. If you've ever heard of Boudica, the English, I think, pronounce her Boadicea. But the C really should be a hard C. But then the English do that soft C and a lot. And okay, I'm not getting into linguistics. But Boudica, Boudicca, she is not just a warrior queen by birthright, but she's one of the few adversaries of the Romans who ever gave the Romans a resounding defeat. So she was pretty kick-ass. So you have Briton, and you have the Irish, the Welsh, and then the Picts. And the word Pict is a Latin word, so we don't even know what they called themselves, but they're the ones who painted themselves in the blue woad. If you've ever seen the movie Braveheart, and Mel Gibson, before he went crazy, he was like painted all in blue when he was on the battlefield fighting for Scotland's independence from England. Yeah, so that blue is actually a reference to the original inhabitants of Scotland, who were the Romans called the Picts, P-I-C-T, because this means painted. They were the painted people, or the Picts, from which we get the word picture, right? So the Scotties came over in the 5th century and kind of formed that culture, what we now know as Scotland. So that island, and of course Ireland is its own little island. But those islands, and you have the Manx and Isle of Skye and all of that up there. The Romans first started invading 2,000 years ago, and so you have the influence of the Romans, so there could be Italian DNA lurking in my veins. And then when the Romans not hired, let's say, they hired mercenaries from the tribes around them, the indigenous people of Europe, the pagans. they hired them as mercenaries if they couldn't kill them off in battle. It's like, oh, you're a really good fighter. Why don't you come, fight for the Roman army? And some of them took them up on that, especially when the alternative was slavery or death. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll be mercenaries for the Roman Empire. So in the Roman invasion of Britain and then the Pictish area, certainly in Wales, there's no telling what European DNA. It could be all the way over from the Near East and the Middle East, or on the northern coast of Africa. The Romans did not like water. They did not like sailing. And I remember this very clearly from my 9th grade Latin class with Father Brock at St. Joseph High School in Jackson, Mississippi. He was very clear. The Romans did not like sailing. So the fact that they actually went anywhere, they actually would go all the way around the Mediterranean rather than sail across it. The Greeks loved to sail, but the Romans not so much. So the fact that they actually went across the little channel, between the Frankish kingdoms or the French Roman Empire over to Britain, it's actually pretty funny because they really hated sailing. So the Romans in the 1st century, and then when the Roman Empire kind of fell apart in the in like 476, 496, but definitely by the into the 5th century, then you actually had the beginnings of the Germanic tribes who've said, fuck you, Rome, we're not going to be your mercenaries and you're not going to kill us off anymore. Then the Germanic tribes started expanding. So you've probably heard or remember from your history classes, you've heard of the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, and the other Goths, right? Well, the Ostrogoths, Ostra for east, that's where we get the word Ostara, from which we get the word Easter. And then you have the Visigoths, or the Western Goths, the Goths that went to the west. So the Germanic tribes that came to Britain beginning in the 5th century, those were the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes, and they came back and forth between the 5th and 8th centuries. And so, of course, if you remember the word Angle and Saxon, that'll be familiar, because as the Angles settled in and as the Saxons settled in, they then battled each other rights to the leftover Roman occupied Britain or Britannia. And so then you have these squabbles in between Anglo culture and Saxon culture, Anglo culture, Saxon culture. And eventually they just said, oh, fuck it, fine, we'll be Anglo-Saxon. So I'm sure you've heard of the term Anglo-Saxon, right? So then the other main tribe was the Jutes, Jutes, and I really don't ever hear much of them other than jute in terms of rope. I mean, I really have never heard of much of the Jute Germanic tribes and what they did after they came over to Britain. But maybe my knowledge is just lacking. So if you know something and you'd like to share, please do so. And so beginning in the 9th century, that's when you have a lot of the Viking raids. The Norsemen, and Norse, it just means north, right? So these Northmen started invading. They first came down to Scotland and then over to around the Anglo-Saxon area, and then Ireland. And they were brutal. And I do not know why the brutality of the Vikings has been so I don't even know a good term for it, put on a pedestal, especially with the TV show The Vikings. I mean, yes, women fought in battle, and yes, women were shield maidens, but women fought in battle in every indigenous culture in Europe because women were respected in those cultures before patriarchy took over. Fuck you, ancient Rome. But anyway, so I don't understand why the violence of the Vikings is so cherished. It's not a good word. Upheld, promoted. There is a Viking code that I do like, but Still, I would just, I'm a pacifist, so I don't like all the violence about that. But anyway, so the Vikings came in and they were very brutal. And what we do know of ancient Irish oral traditions actually was put into the clerics, the Christian clerics would actually write the old tales, the old stories of the Irish people. And they would do this in Scotland, and they would do this in Wales. And so they're writing the indigenous stories of the indigenous peoples of the Britannic and Irish islands. They would write them in. But of course, they would add things like, this Irish king fought that Irish king for, the cows and the chickens and blah, blah, blah. And this Irish king, experienced great defeat, ... because he did not believe in, Jesus, our Lord Christ, blah, 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 so they would add that kind of stuff in there. But anyway, so then you have the Vikings and the Northmen invading in the 9th century. And then if you remember your history of the Battle of Hastings in 1066, which is where the Norman French come up. Well, what's interesting is that Norman actually means Northmen. When the Vikings invaded the Frankish kingdoms, and again, Charlemagne was trying to bring all the Frankish kingdoms together to form France back in the 9th century, early 10th century. And so he was trying to make one kingdom to bind them all, rule them all. And then here come the Vikings are like, oh, no, we want your land. We want your gold. We want your women. We want this, that, and the other. And so they finally settled on okay, look, you can have this plot of land if you leave the rest of France alone. And so that's where Normandy comes from. And Northmen. So that Norman French, if I have Norman French, it's going to be that North. So I'm expecting Viking. So definitely, because people have thought I am obviously Irish and Scottish, but people have asked if I'm Scandinavian over the years. People have asked if I'm German, if I'm French. It's like whatever they are. European country or nationality, they assume that I am that too, because apparently I just fit in. And I'm like, no, I'm a ginger. I have this big mutation on my 16th chromosome. This is why I look like this. Fair skin that burns and freckles and weird color hair and weird color eyes and all that stuff. So anyway, so the Vikings in the 9th century, then you have the Norman French invading England. And the word England comes from Angle land, right? The Saxons, they kind of succumbed, I guess, to the Angle culture, and through much fighting. But so Angle Terra is the land. Terra is Latin for land. So Angle Terra is the land of the Angles, and so from Angle land we get the word England, right? So England. So that's what England actually means. The word England means Angle land, the land of the Angles, which are Germanic tribes, because the royal family of England are German. And during World War II, the ruling royal family there in England, they changed their name. That's when they became Windsors, because they did not want to be associated with the Germans, the German culture, because of the rise of the Nazis. But so the German culture has been in England very heavily from the 5th century. And, this is why I say that, the Irish are not Celtic. Scottish are not Celtic. The English are Celtic because, and I'll do a whole video on this because I'm tired of explaining it individually. I just want to be able to link people to a video. But anyway, so yeah. So I say all of this to say, just being from the British Isles and Ireland, the Republic of Ireland is its own little country, and Scotland should be its own country, and Wales should be its own country, because they were. Anyway, I'm expecting to see anything, like really. I'm expecting to see Irish, Scottish, Welsh, English, French, Norse, Viking, German. There was even a family story about because the family story with the French is that our family were French Huguenots, which were Protestants, if I remember. And oh yeah, there was a big to do when my mother made us Catholic. Oh my God, it was huge. But anyway, then there was like Dutch somewhere in there, so I don't really know. But anyway, so then there's the whole aspect of being American, being an American mutt. What the heck, you know? So okay, all right. So I am on the page. Drum roll, drum roll. Okay. So I did the spit test thing, and let me tell y'all, when they say don't drink anything for half an hour, they're not kidding. You don't want to drink anything for half an hour. I chose the 23andMe test simply because I wanted more of the DNA stuff. I'm not as interested as in the genealogy and connecting with people. People have already started contacting me, and I'm like, y'all, that's not why I did this. But so the 23andMe had more of what I wanted to know from the DNA. Or I'm assuming it does. I haven't actually seen it. But the spit test was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be, simply because you can't drink anything for half an hour. But the thing is that I forgot to drink something half an hour before doing it. So it was hard to get that spit going, you know. It was just like, oh my gosh. And it's only viable for, I think, a couple of hours. You have to, so you spit into this tube, and it says it takes a good 30 minutes. And I thought they were joking. They're not kidding. It took me 15 minutes to do that. You can't drink anything for half an hour beforehand. And then they want you to spit this, it's like a half teaspoon. And you think, oh, that's not much. Oh, it is when you're parched. That was a lot of work. I'm just saying right now. So make sure you drink some water, and you want to drink water, and then wait half an hour before you start the spit test. And then it comes in this little tube. I had pictures on social media. Look at my Instagram. They're on my Instagram. And then it has this little, it comes with a tube, and then it has this little top, and the top has this it's a preservative for the saliva. So you just kind of keep it, I guess, alive and juicy until it reaches their facility. And so when you get done with this, the spitting into the tube, it's like half a teaspoon, and then you just put that over. And when you put that over the top of the tube, it releases that preservative to keep the saliva in whatever state it needs to be. And then you send it off. So this was $99, and I've been wanting to do this for years. But I waited because I really didn't have $99 to spend on this kind of thing. And you keep hearing about all these advances in DNA, right? And so I figured now's a good time. And also because before, as a woman, I couldn't get half of my DNA done simply because of they couldn't see as much through the female chromosome, which is the X chromosome, if I remember correctly. But from the men can get like both sides all the way back for thousands of years because of the way that they can do the DNA through the Y chromosome. But there have been advances in DNA that I felt comfortable that I was going to get enough of the information that I wanted to get. So I'm hydrating. 1 second. Drinking a lot of coconut water right now. Trying to get off caffeine, so I'm thirstier. And just thinking about, I really should have been more hydrated before I did that spit test. Wow. All right. So now I'm looking at the results. Between being European and knowing my family has been here, in the now United States since the 1780s, at least. Again, I don't know if Patrick Causey stayed. I think he went back to Ireland. So I don't think we were here in the early 1700s. But anyway, okay. So what they're showing me is that I can see a map of my DNA relatives' locations. Some of your DNA relatives have added their current locations, discovered connections across the globe or across the street. No, thank you. Flip through the story of your DNA. And then there's a lot of research, a lot of DNA research, but I don't subscribe to the fear mongering about genetics of, oh, I have this gene, so I'm going to die of that disease, whatever. You absolutely can change that kind of stuff. Okay, start with Ancestry, start with traits. What should we do first? Ancestry or traits? It says Ancestry composition is 56% British and Irish. I think that's kind of low, 56%. That means I'm 44% something else. French, German, Dutch, Mermaid. And it says traits. I have 34 reports. DNA relatives. I have 1,395 relatives found who have used the 23andMe. And it says I can see my family tree. Okay, well, let's start with Ancestry and composition. Let's start there. Woo! And we are having a bad storm right now, so I'm hoping that you can see and hear, and that's not too choppy. I will be getting Wi-Fi soon, but right now I am doing this off my phone, and so my phone is also operating my laptop's Wi-Fi. So, okay, so Northwestern European, I am... Okay, so European, I am 98.6% European. I'm like, well, I think that was kind of obvious. I didn't have to pay $99 to know that. Okay, so, wow. So British and Irish, I'm 56%. What does this say? County Mayo. I love mayo. I make my own mayo. It's awesome. So the United Kingdom, which includes Scotland and Wales, by the way. The United Kingdom has 165 administrative regions, and we found the strongest evidence of your ancestry in the following 10 regions: Greater London, Greater Manchester. Well, yeah, they used my song, Fields of Athenry. Glasgow City, West Midlands, Lancashire, West Yorkshire, Merseyside. Oh, I'm going to mispronounce this. Tyne and Ware, Tyne and Ware, and County Durham and Cumbria. Ireland, County Mayo. Okay, so Ireland has 26 administrative regions, and we found the strongest evidence of your ancestry in the following 10 regions: County Mayo, County Cork, County Dublin, or Dublin if you're on the Rocky Road to Dublin, County Wexford, County Donegal, County Kerry, County Roscommon, County Leitrim, and Sligo too, and County Sligo. And the last one is County Galway. Wow, that's amazing. So County Mayo, that's incredible. Okay, so yeah, this really sucks that in United Kingdom, they kind of keep, you know, they keep Scotland. Scotland, please get your independence. But yeah, Glasgow, I'm very glad to see that. I'm going to have to research some of these others. Tyne and Ware, where's that? That is way down there, Tyne and Ware, Newcastle upon Tyne. I don't know if that's pronounced Tyne, Tyne. I don't know, but that is very cool. I will be doing research, and considering that Tyne, that's probably the part of the Norman aspects of things. So let me see. French and German, 19.6%. Switzerland, Bavaria, Germany, Switzerland, Grisons, Switzerland, Germany, Bavaria, and Rhine-Westphalia. Okay, I'll have to research that. Bavaria, I do love the donuts, you know, with the Bavarian cream. That actually is one of my favorite donuts. So I guess I'm just like naturally picking up on my DNA. Scandinavian, 2.2%. And they don't even have any information on that. It says, help us improve this report. The people of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Iceland share a genetic heritage that dates back to the arrival of Scandinavia's first hunter-gatherers over 11,000 years ago. But later migrations of Stone Age farmers and Middle Age herders left a larger footprint on the region's modern genetic landscape. Germanic-speaking tribes developed from the metalworking societies of southern Scandinavia around 500 BCE. That's before Common Era. Thank you very much. And by the late 8th century CE, Common Era, the Vikings had begun centuries-long maritime expansion. Oh, is that what they call that? Maritime expansion. All righty. Death, destruction, rape, pillaging is now maritime expansion. Okay, well, like the Greeks, I guess. Establishing settlements from the Black Sea to North America. Yes, Europeans were over here in North America long before Christopher Columbus. All right, so, okay, here's where it gets interesting. So I am broadly European. I'm a European broad. Let's see, that's 1.1%. Much of Europe was buried under miles of ice 10,000 years ago. As the glaciers receded over millennia, Paleolithic farmers from Western Asia joined Paleolithic hunter-gatherers to settle Europe. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading this. Let me see if I can angle my laptop. That's a little better. Okay. Some European DNA is difficult to assign confidently to one population, and it receives a broadly designation. So I am broadly European, 1.1%. Broadly Northwestern European. Northwestern Europeans are represented by people from as far west as Ireland, as far north as Norway, and as far east as Finland, and as far south as France, which actually ties into everything that I've already talked about. These countries rim the North and Baltic Seas and have been connected through much of the history of those waters. Broadly Northwestern European DNA matches several specific populations and cannot be assigned to just one. This shared heritage may be the result of extensive migration, possibly including the Germanic invasions of the early Middle Ages. Yeah. Okay. Southern European. I am 3.3% Southern European. So that's 2.1% Spanish and Portuguese, 0.3% Italian, and 0.9% broadly Southern European. Maybe that's why I don't like Italian food. Like, it's not that I don't like it. I think pasta is pointless, actually. I like all the stuff that goes on pasta. And 0.6% Congolese and Southern East African. So I have 0.6% of my DNA is African. So starting around 3,000 years ago, Bantu speakers carried metallurgy and agriculture from the highlands of Nigeria and Cameroon in two major streams. one southward and one eastward, resulting in ancestry that transcends geopolitical borders. Bantu is a term, I don't know, Bantu, I'm saying Bantu, is a term widely used to describe the largest of Africa's ethno-linguistic families. And so I am 0.6% Angolan and Congolese. So that was Congolese and Southern East African. Trace ancestry. We detected traces of the following populations in your DNA. 0.3% Native American, 0.3% broadly Arab, Egyptian, and Levantine, okay, Levantine, and 0.1% broadly Sub-Saharan African. And then I have 0.1% that is unassigned. There is a wide range of human diversity in the world, and sometimes our algorithm is unable to match a region of your DNA to a specific population with confidence. In individuals whose ancestors came from multiple continents or who mixed many generations ago typically see more unassigned ancestry in their ancestry composition. Individuals whose ancestors came from just one continent, that would be me, or individuals whose ancestors intermixed more recently typically see less unassigned ancestry. So to review, European, all European, I am 98.6% European, and that's 94.2% Northwestern European. So that absolutely ties into the family lineage. And that, again, that includes the English, Scottish, some Welsh, but definitely England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Germany, Switzerland, that was interesting, Scandinavian, and then broadly Northwestern European. And then Southern European, a little bit of a surprise, but like I said, you know, the Romans invaded 2,000 years ago. So I wasn't expecting a whole lot of Mediterranean. So yeah, 3.3% Southern European. That actually is, I guess that's okay. I mean, like yeah, I don't know. I wasn't expecting a lot, and I didn't get a lot, so I guess I got what I expected. Southern European, 3.3%, and that was Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and then broadly Southern European. Broadly European, 1.1%. This surprises that I have anything African or American Indian, but not very much. So the Congolese and Southern East African was 0.6%. And trace ancestry, Native American, 0.3%, Arab Egyptian, 0.3%, and then broadly Sub-Saharan African, 0.1%. I'm going to tell you honestly, considering my family has been in Mississippi since the 1780s, I actually would have expected more American Indian and more African, honestly. Just because you just don't know. You don't know who married whom necessarily. And back in the day, women were not recorded in family. Like you may have had like a first name, but not a last name. You may have had just an X. I've in documents, in medieval documents, where there was a daughter, they would list all the sons that they would mention there was a daughter, but not name her. So I don't know. So, you know, I'm not surprised. But yeah, 98.6 European. So yeah, I was actually, I think I was expecting more American Indian because we have been in Mississippi so long. And I thought there might be more African, but, as you can see, I am definitely a white girl. All right, let's see. Oh, and it's really cool. That's scientific data. So that was just like that, the highlights. of the ancestral background breakdown, and then they give oh, that's interesting. So in the French and German, they say like Austria, Belgium, France, Luxembourg, and Netherlands not detected. So that actually changes a little bit of the family history of, you know, French Huguenots. Scandinavian was 2.2%, but they weren't able to do that. Anyway, so I'm looking through no Greek, no Italy, no Malta. So it says, although we've detected Italian DNA, we have not identified more specific locations that your recent ancestors may have called home. Ah, okay. So now they're talking about recent. So broadly Southern European, no Ashkenazi Jew, no Eastern European, as in Belarus, Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Russia, Slovakia, Slovenia, or Ukraine. And yeah, and no Central or South Asian, no East Asian, Native American. So that means no Chinese, no Filipino, no Indonesian, Thai, no Vietnamese, no Japanese, no Korean. Although I love Korea, I can't wait to go back. I want to go back to Korea so badly. And apparently no Indian. So anyway, so this is really cool. So now they're doing the breakdown on the science and the frequently asked questions. Then the other thing they have, which obviously I can't show you right now, is they have this option for they have this option for seeing the traits. View your report. So I had like 34 traits. So let's see what that is. Physical features, taste and smell, weird and wonderful. Okay, let's see. %59 chance that I do not have dimples. Have you seen my ass? I got dimples, y'all. I got dimples. All right, let's see. 41% chance I do have dimples. Have you seen my ass? I have dimples. All right. Cleft chin. 87% chance you do not have a cleft chin. And 13% that I do have a cleft chin. Let's see what else. Eye color. Okay. 51% chance of blue eyes. 21% chance of greenish blue eyes. My eyes are blue and green. 17% chance of green eyes, and a less than 1% chance of brown eyes of any kind, light brown or dark brown. And that's because my family is so Northwestern European, and I have the ginger gene mutation. So earwax. Oh, that's interesting. Earwax type. 93% that I have wet, sticky earwax. And yes, I do. It's the amber. Some people have gray earwax. And 7% chance you have dry, flaky earwax. I do not. Unless I've been in the pool too much. Earlobe. Okay, earlobes. Let's see. 67% chance you have detached earlobes, and 33% chance you have attached lobes. I guess that's detached. I have small ears, so one of the few parts of my body that's small. All right. Finger length ratio. 59% chance your ring finger is longer than your index finger. 41% chance your index finger is longer than your ring finger. So I think that is showing my index finger is indeed longer than my ring finger. 52% chance that 52% chance that I have Few, if any, freckles. So I don't even know if y'all can see all this. I don't know. I have the screen door tan. Yes, I do. 48% chance that I have lots of freckles. Hair photo bleaching. Your traits say that you have 85% chance that you experience hair photo bleaching. I guess that it bleaches when you get out in the sun. And 15% chance you do not experience hair photo bleaching. When I was a kid, what would happen is that my hair would become more red, because as a kid, I was a strawberry blonde. And as I got older, my hair got darker, but spending time in the sun, it makes it more orangey red. And it's always done that. So hair texture, 62% chance of straight hair, 31% chance of slightly wavy hair. I had straight as a board hair until I was pregnant with my daughter, and then my hair became very wavy. And I have 1% chance of big curls, 1% chance of small curls, and less than 1% chance of very tight curls. Let's see. Newborn hair. 67% chance you had little or no hair at birth. 33% chance you had lots of hair at birth. I had lots of hair at birth, as did my daughter. 95% chance you do not have red hair. So clearly this is not a perfect science. 5% chance you have red hair. Ginger cheese. Skin pigmentation. I have a 39% chance of very fair skin. Girl, I have got 100% chance of very fair skin. And 65% chance that I have stretch marks, and 35% chance that I do not have stretch marks. Again, I've given birth, so I have stretch marks all over. Yeah. Toe length ratio. Oh my gosh. Okay, so toe length ratio, unibrow, widow's peak, 78% chance that I do not have a widow's peak. Y'all see this triangle right here? Toe length, 51% chance you have a longer second toe. I think most people do, actually. 73% chance I do not have a unibrow. Okay. All right. Now, one of the things that they do is that they offer an update, or which I did not get the health. You can get the health thing. Oh, this is cool. So taste and smell. I just lost my train of thought, but I'm not, it just showed like I can upgrade to the health thing. I'm not going to do that, but it is an option for another like $100. So taste and smell. I can likely smell asparagus. Apparently you have to have a certain gene in order to be able to smell and taste the flavor of asparagus. And some people have a gene that makes them unable to eat asparagus. Some people have a gene that makes it unable for them to eat broccoli. I can likely taste bitter foods. I have a slightly higher odds of disliking cilantro, and that is true. I do not like the flavor of cilantro. Now, that doesn't mean I won't eat it. I will eat it if it's in mixed in food, like a guacamole or something. But cilantro, now here in America, this is important. In America, we distinguish the leaves of the coriander plant, or the leaves, we call it cilantro. The seeds we call coriander. And I love cooking with coriander. So here in America, cilantro is the leafy part and coriander seed is the seed part. But yeah, I do not like the flavor of cilantro. An ice cream flavor preference. I have a 50-50 chance of preferring vanilla or chocolate ice cream. I do not like vanilla ice cream. I do love chocolate ice cream. My favorite flavor of ice cream is actually peach. I love peach. I love peaches. But that's kind of hard to find. Of course, I love pecan, pecan anything. So, but like butter pecan ice cream, love it. And I love strawberry ice cream. But between these two, between the 50-50 chance of preferring vanilla or chocolate, of those two, I prefer chocolate, but I actually don't prefer those. Those are not my favorite. And sweet versus salty, I likely prefer sweet. And that is true. I've never been like a salty, crunchy kind of person. I'm definitely a sweet, cushy, succulent kind of person. Like I prefer desserts to like chips or, that kind of thing. Like I'm not a big chip person. Weird and wonderful. I am less likely to be able to match musical pitch. Well, that's a big fuck you in your general direction right there. Let's see. I'm a singer and composer. I can match pitch just fine. Thank you very much. I am less likely than average to have had a bunion. Yeah, I think I've only had one ever. And that was actually when I was dancing on point. So it was actually caused, the bunion was actually caused by, it was just a buildup of hardened tissue, calluses, like blisters on blisters on blisters on blisters from dancing on point. I am more likely than average to be afraid of heights. No, I love heights. I can't wait to go bungee jumping. That is still on my, that's on my to-do list. I am less likely to have a fear of public speaking. Okay, they got something right. I am less likely than average to have flat feet. I am less likely to have thick hair. Y'all don't even know. This right here, this is with like going through thyroid stuff and whatever. This is half the hair I had a few years ago. This is half. So you can imagine. I'm less likely to hate chewing sounds. Mosquito bite frequency. Likely bitten as often as others, but I lay off the sugar. That's why they know you're juicy and sweet. Like if I know I'm going to be outside, I'm not going to eat sugar. And I don't wear cologne or perfume when that attracts as well. Motion sickness, more likely to experience motion sickness. No. Photic sneeze reflex. Likely no photic sneeze reflex. That must be like you outside and you sneeze because of the sun. I absolutely have that. I absolutely have that. I 37% sneeze when exposed to bright light, and I do. Not stage lights, but outside in the sun, absolutely. And there's actually a name for that, and it starts with an A. I don't remember it now. But yeah, likely to wake up around 7:48 a.m. Y'all don't know about the ascension process, do you? Because no, it says people with your genetics in their 40s wake up on average around 7:48 a.m. on their days off. Then it talks about your internal clock. I am a night person. So y'all can, just bring that way on over here to night person. Age 40s. There we go. No, how we got your result. Oh, it says we identified 450 genetic markers that were associated with being a morning person or a night person. These findings also took into account non-genetic factors, specifically age and sex. Then we looked at survey responses from over 70,000 23andMe research participants across all ethnicities to calculate a statistical model that predicted your average wake-up time. When I am, I usually I'm waking up around 8 o'clock. Whether I am awake at 3 a.m. and I stay awake for 3 hours, and then go back to sleep around anywhere between 6 and 7 a.m. I still wake up around 8:30. On the nights that I actually sleep through the night, but I still wake up around, I wake up at 4, I wake up at 6, and if I go right back to sleep, I still wake up around 8:30. So, wow, this has been interesting. Some of this I expected, some of this I did not expect. I knew I'd be way European, but I figured that having been, my family being here, especially here in the American South, since the 1780s, I figured that there would be more American Indian and maybe even some more African blood in my genetics. As an intactivist, I'll just go ahead and say this. As an intactivist, I was really hoping there was some Jewish ancestry, just so I could say, well, I'm Jewish and circumcision's wrong. But I guess, darn it, I'm not going to be able to say that. I can still say circumcision's wrong. But anyway, so that was really interesting. You know, if you're interested in your history and your DNA and really seeing how, hey, Robbie, you're still there. Cool. You know, if you're really interested in getting to know who you are, where you've been, where your family has been, there is some more that I can look into. I'm just not going to do it right now. But it's, you know, they can actually show you some of the migrations of your family based on your DNA, which I think is really cool. But, you know, I've seen people who just consider themselves a white person and they wind up having Indian blood, African blood. They're Christian, they wind up having Jewish blood, or not a TV person. Me either. I haven't had a TV since 2004. Don't need it. But yeah, so anyway, this has been really cool. If you're interested in the health traits, if you're interested in getting to know other people, maybe family, I can see how this would be really, really great if you were adopted, or maybe you were in the foster care system and maybe you don't know your background, you don't have that connection to a family, but you want to know where you are from and maybe even be able to find relatives right now. I think this is really cool. I think this is really amazing, an amazing tool for people. And again, my history nerd self, and I'm trying to lessen my love of history, of the earth, simply because I am going through this ascension process. And, you know, if you knew me a few years ago, you know, like I was your go-to person for history, anthropology. I was always more interested in anthropology, which is the study of humanity, and sociocultural anthropology. I took some religion courses at Tulane, which is in New Orleans, and loved it because they were Indian religions, and one of my teachers was from India. So anyway, so this is fascinating. I can see how doing your DNA is a great way to find out about health risk factors. But you can obviously see just by me going through this stuff that some of this stuff, their predictions are based on surveys. So if I have a certain gene, but I answer their survey this way, I'm actually changing their survey results of the people who've already been. Like, you know, 50% you prefer vanilla or chocolate. That means that 50-50 chance that that I prefer vanilla or chocolate above all other flavors, and that's not true. Or that I likely have very few freckles. You know, so a lot of this is about, I can see how the survey responses are really important. And I haven't done any of the surveys yet because I haven't looked at my DNA stats yet. So I think I will do some of these surveys because I think those of us who, you know, have freckles need to be represented, right? So I hope this has been useful, and I hope you have found something helpful out of all of this. If nothing else, you spent an hour here and not an hour on TV. There isn't a whole lot to watch on TV right now, well, especially now. But if you want to join me tomorrow, I will be doing a live show, taking your questions or comments about foreskin, why men need their foreskin. And of course, if men need their foreskin, that obviously means babies need their foreskin, right? Right. So I will be here, same time, same channel here tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time. So that's 8 Eastern and, well, ooh, 5 Pacific. Sorry, guys. And yeah, and then Thursday I will be talking about Christ consciousness, because that's a really big buzzword within the Ascension community, light workers, the spiritual community, and of course amongst Christians. But people in the Ascension community, in the spiritual community, are using the word Christ, Christ, incorrectly. And it just bugs the snot right out of me. And so, you know, there's a part of me that's very 5D. And then there's a part of me that is still like, no, that's wrong. And you're doing it wrong. So let me explain why you're doing it wrong. And so there's that part of me that's still kind of judgmental, very judgmental. You know, so, anyway, so we'll talk about that Thursday, 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, and 5 on Pacific. Now, if these times don't work for you, I may do videos on the weekend to help with the other time zones, especially my peeps out in Europe and in Australia. But right now, I'm going to try and stick to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time. And I may start doing some SacredSex stuff on Saturdays, because that's actually the busiest time for my YouTube channel, is on Saturday evenings. So if you have a particular time zone preference, please let me know where you are in the world, because if you don't tell me that you're watching my channel and you enjoy what I present, and where you are, I don't know to kind of do at least one show a week in a time zone when you're awake, right? You know, you shouldn't have to stay up till 3 a.m. to watch this, right? So, I mean, I would be happy to do one show a week that's in a better time zone for especially for my viewers in Eastern Europe and India and Australia, etc. So, all right. I hope this was useful. I am I'm easing back into doing my Trish Causey show. And so don't be surprised if you see this logged under Trish Causey show very soon. With Mercury retrograde and everything going on, I haven't wanted to make plans for officially coming back with my show. I'm just kind of easing back as it feels good, as it feels right, and just going with the flow. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you so much. And thank you for always commenting. I really love that. For those of you who lurk around, I love y'all too. Please comment. Please feel free to talk in the chat. It certainly makes it more fun. You know, y'all can talk with Robbie. He's great. He's up in New York. So anyway, I love y'all. Y'all take care. And I will see you tomorrow night, same time, same channel here on my YouTube. And we will discuss foreskin Q&A. So bring your questions and concerns about foreskin and about circumcision. All right. I love y'all. Only love is real. Bye.